In this video, we will be going over the life of Shane. Spoilers for most of the Spirit Animal books. Thank you to the Spirit Animal Wiki for helping in this video. This is the life of Shane. Shane, also known as the Great Devourer and later just King, was born on the continent of Sterile, and was the heir to the throne. Calling himself the poorest prince in the world, as Sterile was a harsh land, trapped from the outside world after the First Devourer War. Shane had an older sister, Drina, who were good friends until she summoned a tarantula and was infected by the bonding sickness, which took the life of their mother and disabled King Erwin, their father. Shane was trained in the ways of King and also combat by his uncle Gar. At around the age of 13, Shane's life took a turn for the better. Shane met Zareth, a foreigner who was locked up for trying to take timber, a criminal offense. Zareth and Shane spent a lot of time together, where Zareth explained he knew the cure to the bonding sickness, explaining about what had happened after the First Devourer War, and how getting bonded to a spirit animal everywhere else was a blessing. After explaining that the Jade Serpent, Jerathon's talisman, lay on the throne of Sterile, Shane took it and was able to cure the bonding sickness in Sterile and gain popularity, and later became the king of Sterile when Zareth, with the help of his spirit animal, a jackal, were able to kill the late king. Making Shane the king, Shane would later bond himself to a crocodile he named Grav. After this, Shane, with the help of his uncle Gar and Zareth, used the bile to create an army, which took the name the Conquerors. Their plan was to free Kovo and Jerathon from their prisons. Using the help of Shane's mentor, Yamaris, who has prophetic visions, they were able to discover the reincarnation of the Four Fallen. Shane was on a ship when he greeted Abik, the summoner of Uriza, the leopard, and one of the Four Fallen. He lied to Abik, saying his spirit animal is a wolverine and is scared of boats, so he did not have to bring it out. Abik and Shane trained with each other, surprised by both of their skills, and formed a friendship. Shane later saved Abik from a tree where she was hiding when a dog was affected by the bile. Shane and Abik met with his uncle Gar, who said they needed Abik's help to get Eric's the Ram's talisman, the granite ram. The group of conquerors and Abik were able to find Eric's and meet the three other fallen and their human partners. During the battle, the four fallen were able to get away with the talisman, leaving Shane and the conquerors. Shane prepared for war with his uncle until he was in a battle in Zong, in which he encountered the four fallen again. In the battle, he saved Abik's life, and the rest of the group finally knew who Shane was. Following the heroes north in Arctica, Shane, who had the Iron Boar talisman, says they would trade, lying to Abik. Later, a battle commenced in which Shane was able to get the Crystal Bear talisman. Shane, staying in a conqueror camp, was later present when the conquerors were moving Abik as a prisoner. Shane, Milin, and Abik were taken to a conqueror ship. He apologized for what had happened to them and took them above deck. Arguing with Zareth and his sister Drina, later he brought the two prisoners to a conqueror meeting with his uncle and Jerathon the Serpent. Wishing to escape with Abik, further wishing to do so when Drina, his sister, was killed by her own spirit animal by Jerathon, using the bile. Shane also was saved unknowingly by Eumeris, later escaping with Abik on his family ship. Heading to Greenhaven, the Green Cloaks base, he was stopped by Roland, who asked Shane some questions, making him feel uncomfortable, and he released Grav upon them. With the help of Grav, Shane was able to steal all of the talisman except for the coral octopus and granite ram, which Roland had on him, and was able to make an escape with the help of Hollowar the eagle, a great beast who switched sides and joined the conquerors. Shane is later sat down in Nilo and made his way on foot to Conqueror camp, meeting a boy named Achi, who helped him track through the jungle. However, later being stopped by Lachey and her spirit animal Tiger, Shane was able to beat Lachey with the help of Grav and the talismans, and was able to join the Conquerors. Shane revealed himself to Mei Lin, which angered the girl. Shane led a battle against the Green Cloaks against Abik as well, only retreating when Jerathon took control of him using the bile. Shane retreated to Muttering Rock, the prison of Kova the Ape, and was being held there. Kova used the Staff of Cycles. Realizing he had been used and refusing to bow down to Kovo, Shane attacked Jerathon. This is different to the previous Reptile King, Felindor, who ultimately bowed down to Kovo, while Shane did not. Being controlled by Jerathon, Shane attacked the Four Fallen, but retreated. Shane was found on the ground by Abik, who forced him to get up only to fight him, and was tied up but ultimately escaped. After the end of the first series, Shane went on a hunt for his former mentor Umaris, blaming her for the death of his sister Drina. Followed by Aina, Shane joined a fort of conquerors, all of which said their spirit animals had gone wild. Shane was able to eventually meet up with Umaris, who explained she saved Shane when Drina died, and there is a new threat coming, hinting at the Wyvern. Shane ended up traveling to an island after that, far off the coast of Sterile, meeting a conqueror named Maddox and his band of conquerors, and persuading more to join his side. Later making the Red Cloaks, a group of conquerors that wished to atone for their crimes, most of which had their spirit animals stuck in them like Shane. Eventually, with the help of Umaris, Shane was able to save Neri, the summoner of Mulop, and failed to save Suka, and later the Red Cloaks took care of all the children who lost their great beast partners to Zareth and the Wyvern. Shane headed towards Amaya to help Talon the Elk. His transformation with Grov shows Shane, who has nicknamed himself King, to have yellow eyes and scales instead of one of his arms, and is also able to summon the power of Grov for a certain amount of time. Shane began to fight with Zareth, failing to save Talon the Elk from being infected, but managed to save Abik, Roland, and Anda. He threw his spear, temporarily disabling Talon, then ran towards Suka and dropkicked her, knocking her out. This distracted Zareth long enough for Abik to shoot Zareth in the side, but this did nothing, as Zareth hardly reacted to it. She then shot Rumpus and Jerathon, leaving Eryx to attack her. King saved her from Eryx's horns by grabbing them and driving them into the ground. Abik tries to kill him but realizes that Anda needs immediate medical attention and let him escape. Roland thanks King for his help and asks for his name. King doesn't respond, pointing to Anda, showing Roland to take care of him instead of King, and King returned to chasing Sarah. After this encounter, Shane was summoned back to Sterile to help Nanani the Swan and her human partner. Roland and Abik eventually came to Sterile, and after encountering them, Shane and the Red Cloaks battled Zareth, giving Abik and Roland enough time to leave with the Nanani. Eventually, Shane would follow Abik and Roland to Nilo, where they would go and get Kaburu and Carrot. Shane was able to save Roland and Abik and their company, and he revealed his true identity as they made their way to the Place of Desolation, which was the Red Cloaks' hideout. There he discussed what to do against Zareth and the Wyram. Using Mulop, they were able to send a message to Meilin and Kovo and make a plan. However, this broke their guard Mulop had set, alerting Zareth to where they were. Preparing for battle against the many, people infected by the Wyram, and Zareth, Shane was almost able to make up to Abik. During the battle, Eurissa, who had been contaminated for the battle for Karat and Kaburu, attacked Abik, but she was able to be saved by Shane, who paid with his life. Ultimately winning the battle, Abik as well as her friends finally forgave Shane for everything he has done. Shane was never a villain, but he was also never a hero either. Nick Iliopoulos, author of Book of Shane, described Shane as someone who was on the fence between good and evil. In the end, all Shane wanted was to help the people of Sterile. This blinded him to everything else, and when he realized what he'd done, this made him an even greater leader to the Red Cloaks. Shane is probably one of the most impactful people, besides the 4 heroes, to ever grace Erdis. This has been the life of Shane. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, I would like to pay your attention to the red button, and hopefully subscribe to my channel. I'd like to keep these at the end of my videos, so it isn't really obnoxious. And also, if you do subscribe, this is completely free and will also give you this own subscription page where spirit animals will be directly added into there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and have a great day.